So hello everyone and welcome to the Mary Immaculate College Virtual Open Day. My name is Patrick Cosgrove and I'm the Student Recruitment Officer here in Mary Immaculate College. So in this session we'll be looking at our primary teaching programs, namely the Bachelor of Education, the BEd in Education and Psychology, the Bachelor of Education International, and of course we'll also be looking at the BA in Early Childhood Care and Education. So the format is we'll have our 4 presentations first, and then we'll have our Q&A at the end. So to start off, we might just start with the Bachelor of Education first. So I'd just like to welcome Dr. John O'Shea, and John now will tell you everything that you need to know about the Bachelor of Education here at MIC.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to share some slides with you. Okay, so you're all very welcome this afternoon. I hope you've had a good day with us already if you've attended some of our earlier presentations. My name is John O'Shea and I am the course leader for the Bachelor of Education, Primary Teaching. And so this is MI 005, MI 006 on the on your CAO handbooks. Very briefly, I want to give you an idea of the program, particularly what current students are doing today. So to give you an idea of what it's like to participate in the program, and also talk about the future in terms of what you can expect in the program and beyond. Okay, so it is, we normally accept about 440 students, I think, approximately per year into the program, and have done so now for a number of years. So in total, if you multiply that by 4, then you've got quite a number of students over the course of 4 years on the BEd program. The program is a 4-year undergraduate degree, as you probably know already, and it's primarily based on campus and in schools around the country on school placement. So there's a mixture of both on-campus lectures, tutorials, and engagement that you would expect at 3rd level, but quite an amount of the program also is based in schools on what you probably know or have heard. If you have anybody, friends or relations, etc., gone through the program before, it's known as school placement or the professional placement aspect of the program. So the program, it carefully introduces you to primary teaching, and hopefully you'll see there the spine of the program in the middle of the screen there. Hopefully it develops you into all of what you see on screen: a learner, a teacher, a researcher, and a leader. And we are very proud of our program at MIC, our BEd program, in that its graduates and the graduates of the program are highly valued in the profession across the country and even beyond. Okay, so the MIC name, the MIC degree, is very valuable in across the country and as I said, even beyond, but particular to the primary school system in Ireland. Okay, so we have a great history and a great tradition in educating and forming primary teachers, the NQT, the newly qualified teacher, obviously acknowledging that it's the start of the journey in terms of becoming a learner. So the spine of the program is built in such a way to first of all, I suppose, introduce the first year to what it's like to be a teacher. So there are many different types of modules or subjects that you will study, and that will introduce you to what life might be like or what life is like as a teacher down the line. So as a learner, we take great care in helping you move from the side of the desk that you're currently on to the other side of the desk to being a teacher. So that's what first year and indeed some of second year is all about. We have options built into the program as you go through it to develop particular talents that you might have, such as music or sport or languages or different types of subjects that you might like to dip your toe into at 3rd level. The opportunity is there for you to pursue those subjects in addition to your BEd degree, and that's one thing that makes our program unique in terms of the choice it offers people, the amount of opportunity it does offer people as they go through the program. So primarily in first year and second year, and indeed 3rd year, most of the time is spent on campus with school placement opportunities therein also. And in fourth year, half of the year is spent outside of campus, so in schools, probably your neighbouring school, indeed probably the school you went to yourself, the primary school that you may have attended. So from September to Christmas, we currently are, our current fourth years are spending that amount of time in school. As I said, it's most likely, and most of the 440 students do choose to go to a school of their home school for that practice. Okay, so I then just want to talk very, very briefly about what it's like for a first year right now. So what are they studying, to give you an idea of the modules that students are immersed in. So it's a little different at the moment because we're still in a COVID space, and that, you know, we're still in hybrid delivery mode, which some classes are on campus and some classes are online, but it is an on-campus program. It is a program that is taught at MIC Limerick, and obviously COVID, you're well versed in what COVID has done to the education system and has done to program delivery, both second and third level. We are back on campus. We're delighted to be back on campus. So students, the modules that you see there, students are currently doing these modules, but they're exploring a little bit of them online because of numbers and basically room numbers at the moment. So there on screen, you'll see in red, they are the module codes. Okay, so for want of a better word, subjects. Okay, and the subjects that our current first years who just came into us a short couple of weeks ago are exploring is Introduction to Technology and Education Methodology. So the first one is, what are the best approaches? What are the best strategies from an ICT perspective to engage students in learning, to engage to make sure that the environment for all primary school students is as it should be, so that they can all achieve to the best of their ability. So what technology can we utilize in that regard, together with education methodology? So things like developing questioning strategies, developing strategies for classroom management, developing, you know, good classroom management skills in the hope that it's the start of this journey for you, because it can be one of the most difficult things to develop with a student, together with, you know, how to structure a good explanation and how to begin to structure a good explanation to a primary school student. So that's the beginning of methodology, really. Okay, general issues. The second module there, you see language and literacy, and I'll deal with three of them together: language and literacy, An Gaeilge agus Mona na Gaeilge, and STEM 1, Introduction to Maths and its Teaching. So English, Irish and mathematics are the core of the curriculum, really, at primary level. So obviously as a teacher, primary teacher, you teach all subjects. So we begin to explore the teaching of those subjects straight away. Okay, so it's not your knowledge. Obviously your knowledge of English, your knowledge of Gaeilge, your knowledge of mathematics is important, but it's how best to, for example, if I was to walk into a junior infant classroom tomorrow morning, and last week they were looking at what, you know, how the composition of 4, and this week we're moving on to 5, how best would I do that? What are the strategies, the methods, the approaches, the concrete materials, the equipment, and so on, to the 20 odd students, are indeed in many cases much more, and what are the best strategies and methods, etc., for doing that. So they are the subject, the curriculum methodologies, and they begin quite early. So language and literacy, An Gaeilge, and mathematics, they're the first, mathematics and its teaching, they're the first curricular modules you do. Becoming a student teacher is an interesting one because it's a module that helps in the transition from second level to third level. So academic writing, assignments, assessments, and so on are different at third level than at second level. And therefore you need help in that regard, in making sure that you are as assisted in as far as we possibly can in making that transition and getting used to life at third level. So we try to do that in as best we can through that module. So academic writing, for example, is in there. You know, ICT for learning at third level is explored there also. And also, you know, they're coming to college can be it's an interesting transition. It's a big transition. So helping you in that regard in terms of small group activities, small group work, so that you get to know each other as a group, because you'll be in a group with quite a number of people, and so there are helpful activities there to make the transition to third level for you. So So that's an interesting module there, becoming a student teacher. Then we have, and I'll take them together, EDU 111 and 106. So they are the foundation disciplines, we'd call them. So philosophy, sociology, educational psychology, in this case, developmental psychology, the history of education. So, we have a very proud tradition of teaching in this country, and therefore, and in particular, it's because of our foundation subjects, because we do what we do in primary schools for a reason, okay? We have a history, and our teachers are very knowledgeable in terms of how children learn and in the different ways that they learn and they do what they do. And it's because of the teacher's understanding of the foundation subjects. So it's begun to, we explore how the mind works, we explore the development of students and their different stages of development in developmental psychology in particular, but also in looking at history, where we've come from, in philosophy, why we do what we do, and so on. So they're extremely interesting. And in this country, in terms of teacher education across the world, it's something that we value and that we hold very in very high regard, and they are indeed part of the spine of our program. And finally, there you'll see professional placement 1. That is preparing you to go on school placement for the first time. So what students are doing at the moment is looking at, children first guidelines and professional code of practice for teachers and etc. So it's really all part of becoming a professional, so that when you do go to classroom, and our first year students will go to classroom next April, May, they're prepared from that, from a professional background, but also obviously from in terms of curriculum and so on. So that's a taster, I suppose, of what it's like to be a first year student today. So the years ahead then, so it is a busy program because it's a professional qualification. So you can be employed in a primary school teacher upon graduation after 4 years. So it is busy. It's a program that, students, when they come to MIC and compare it to degrees maybe in other institutions where their friends have gone, always ask the question, why is it so busy? It's because it's a professional qualification. It's because you're entering straight away upon graduation, no further study required. You can be employed immediately in a permanent capacity as a primary teacher. But as I said, there are built-in choices within that program for you to develop talents, etc., that you might bring, or that you might have, that you might want to further develop. So, for example, we have what's currently called specialisms within our program. So you may have an interest in something there on screen that's there in front of you now, in either education or the liberal arts. So you are aware since this morning that we also, the BA offered at Mary Immaculate College offers a range of subjects, and those subjects, many of those subjects, are accessible to you also to develop a specialism in. Okay, so maybe at the moment you're really interested in mathematics and you're enjoying your study of that, and you'd like to study that a little more. In terms of third level mathematics, that option is there for you. Similarly, Gaeilge or German or languages, in particular Gaeilge and German, theology and religious studies, and so on. Maybe not, and maybe you'd like to know a little bit more about inclusive special education, about early childhood studies, drama, PE, music, and so on. That option is there for you too. So there's a variety of inbuilt options in the program for you to tailor your degree. So you'll graduate with a BEd and a specialism in one of those subject areas, depending on what you're interested in. That's not an exhaustive list. They change on a regular basis. It just gives you an idea of the options there for you. In terms of school placement, what can you expect? So you can expect to be on placement quite regularly in first year, yes, in second year, yes, third year and fourth year. So across the degree. Placements are designed to enable you to experience all class levels. So from junior infants right the way through to 6th class. Placements are normally, depending on where you come from, you will most likely be based around your home area or bused to a placement from the Limerick campus. Okay, so that's what you can expect. But at the moment, because of COVID, obviously students have spent an amount of time at home, and we have had to conduct placements at home. But as we move into more normal times again, you can expect to be in a placement around Limerick, or indeed close to your home. But across the program, it's important that you gain a variety of experience in a range of different settings. So that's important for you as a graduate in 4 years' time, so that you can go to an interview and say, yeah, so I've experience in in a DESH school, for example. I've experience in infants, I've experience at senior classes in different types of rural, urban settings and so on. So, you know, you will experience placement. The most frequent question I get asked is, when can I do a placement at home? Yes, you can. You will be doing a placement at home, most likely to be your final placement. So the current fourth years, as I said, between September and December, they're at home for the moment, and for all of that time. So that's school placement. So finally then, as my time is running out, just to wrap up, after your degree. So obviously the obvious is that you are entitled to be employed in a primary school upon graduation. Indeed, many students come the end of the academic year in year 4 and are in a rush to be registered with the Teaching Council, because the employment opportunities may not be permanent straight away. Okay, so there's a variety of different types of employment, but there is employment there. And as I said, you know, once it comes to the academic year, people are in a rush to get Teaching Council a Teaching Council number, because you have to have one of those to be employed, because, you know, the employment is there for you. It may not be permanent straight away. Often people spend an amount of time working in different types of contract capacities, but over time, you know, it is a program with which you will be gainfully employed in a primary school, and most likely in a primary school in Ireland. But graduates have travelled, and in particular, there are many jurisdictions where the degree is recognised as satisfying all conditions in that country, in that jurisdiction for work. And people have travelled, for example, to a variety of different destinations across Europe and the Middle East and beyond. And therefore, you know, that experience, the degree does travel well in that regard. Other jurisdictions may require a little extra in terms of certification, and you know, it can be topped up in those jurisdictions, and students have done that in the past also. And finally, then graduates have gone on to further study. Graduates have gone to different jobs and different careers, both within education and outside of it also as well. So those opportunities are there also. So I'm delighted to answer any questions that you might have in a little while, once we have heard all of the presentations. But for the moment, I'm delighted to thank you and for turning up in such numbers this afternoon. Gurb Mila Mahagwif Ila.
Thanks very much, John, there for a very detailed presentation. I suppose for anyone just wondering about the points for the Bachelor of Education. The points this year were 522. And also remember, we have a route for Gaeltacht applicants as well, MI 006, and the points for that were 485 this year. So our next presenter is Dr. Sarah O'Brien, and Sarah will talk to you about the Bachelor of Education International. And that's a program we have introduced in the last number of years. So I'm now just going to hand you over to Sarah, who will tell you everything you need to know about the program.
Thank you, Patrick. So thanks to all of you for being here this afternoon. It's really good to have an audience. I'm the course leader of the Bachelor of Education International. As Patrick just mentioned, this is one of our newer programs. We've got our second year of students this year. So if you are thinking about this program, you'll be getting it at a very early stage of it, and that is an exciting thing. What is the Bachelor of Education International? Well, in many ways, everything that Dr. John O'Shea explained applies to the Bachelor of Education International. So as he, described the school placements and the different modules that you will do, this term and in subsequent terms, all of that information applies to the BEd International. What's different about the BEd International is there is a mandatory study abroad experience, and that happens in autumn of third year. So we like to think of this as a professional qualification in primary teaching that allows you to develop academic specialisation in international education, particularly in terms of comparative education and intercultural education. So that's what it is. At the end of the programme, as Dr. O'Shea was saying, you will come out with a professional degree in education. You'll be able to register with the Teaching Council and apply like other BEd students for teaching posts. There are some modules that are specific to the Bachelor of Education International that you wouldn't be doing in the mainstream Bachelor of Education. Your modules start to become more distinct in third and fourth year of the programme. And I've given you a list of the modules here that are distinct to the Bachelor of Education. So you have the study abroad, which happens in the autumn semester of third year. And then there are these other modules, comparative education 1, 2. There's an education portfolio that allows you to filter and distill all of the experiences that you've gathered abroad into a teacher portfolio. And then your dissertation is expected to focus on an international or a comparative perspective on education. But for the first 2 years, you will be sharing your modules with the Bachelor of Education and indeed, in some cases, with the Bachelor of Education in Psychology. One of the features of this programme is that the class cohort is quite small. There are approximately 15 students per year. So in comparison to the BEd, you're a much smaller group. But you do share a lot of modules. You're often in classes with BEd students as well. So you get the advantage of being a close-knit group while also still swimming in the greater waters of the Bachelor of Education. And as John said, with the BEd International, you have the same number of school placements, the same makeup of school placements, and so on. So there's a lot of synergies between the two programs. So students often wonder about the study abroad opportunities and what that involves. We're very lucky in MIC to have an international office that has developed an enormous amount of connections with the international community. And I have listed just some of the study abroad opportunities that are available through MIC when you're going on your study abroad in third year. This is just a snapshot. There's actually many more universities that we work with. And if you want to take a screenshot, you can see the link that you can look up yourself to look at all of our partner universities in Europe, Australia, and the United States. But just to give you a sense, there's a lot of partnerships in the US, and these are specifically for Bachelor of Education students. We also have quite a few in Europe and quite a few in Australia. Now, when you go on your study abroad, sometimes students wonder, will I be, teaching in a classroom in Australia or the United States? And the answer is not necessarily. Normally, when you're studying abroad, you're taking modules that are equivalent to the modules that you would be taking in the third year BEd. So it's very much an experience of going to a university in another country and taking modules that are somewhat similar to those you would take here, but invariably they have a very different angle, a very different perspective on education. And that's what we want the programme to bring to your professional development. We want you to be able to see education from an international lens. So as I say, it's important to, if you want to take a screenshot, to have a look to follow that link and to have a look at the partnerships. There's a huge range available. As well as the study abroad opportunities and those modules that are differentiated from the Bachelor of Education, we also try to engage you from the very beginning of the programme with international educationalists. So we have a monthly seminar series where we invite different people. Sometimes they're teachers from the United States. Sometimes they're researchers who are thinking about new approaches to education, and they come from all over the world. And because we have Microsoft Teams now, it means that on an ongoing basis you're going to be able to engage in informal conversations with educationalists internationally. And these people cover really interesting topics that I suppose are emerging in the field of education. So this is just a sample of some of the talks that we will be having this year. And so you can see there are speakers from the United States, from Australia, from Mexico, some from Ireland, from Argentina, from Finland and Sweden. So although you go on the study abroad, we try to make sure that on an ongoing basis, you are like these ideas about international education are percolating through your studies. And we really encourage you to kind of to bring the conversations that you learn in those seminars into your assessments and your portfolio, especially. Okay, so in terms of nuts and bolts, what can the BEd International offer you? You can expect at the end of this programme to have more knowledge about teaching in global contexts. You can expect to have more expertise in linguistically and culturally responsive education, which is a really important emerging area in the field of education. You can expect to have fostered relationships with an international community of teachers, scholars and researchers. We'd like you to have the ability to compare the educational context in Ireland to Finland or Sweden or to other places. And we would love you to finish this programme with an increased amount of multilingual and multicultural awareness. So that's everything that I want to say. There are always lots of questions, and if you have them, please put them into the chat box, and we can, I suppose, answer those directly at the end of the session. So thank you so much for listening.
Thanks very much, Sarah, for your presentation there, giving us, I suppose, the full insight into the Bachelor of Education International. Our next speaker is Dr. Claire Griffin, and Claire will be telling you all about our program, the Bachelor of Education in Education and Psychology. So I suppose in a sense it's like primary teaching combined with psychology. So I might just pass you over to Claire now and get Claire to share her screen, and she can tell you all about the program.
Sorry, Patrick, are those slides coming up okay?
I think so. I can see them. If any of our attendees are having any issues, would you just put it in the chat function if you can't see the slide? But I can see it fine here.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks very much, Patrick. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Claire Griffin, and I am the course leader on the Bachelor of Education in Education and Psychology programme. So we generally refer to this as the BEd Psych programme, but it has the longer title of Bachelor of Education in Education and Psychology, and it's a dual degree programme. So you've got two areas in it. So firstly, you've got the professional qualification in primary school teaching, which is accredited by the Teaching Council of Ireland. But secondly, you also have an academic qualification in psychology. So that's a level 8 qualification. So this is what makes it uniquely different to the two previous programs that have just been discussed. Because when you finish this degree, yes, you finish with the qualification to be a primary school teacher in Ireland, but you also finish with your degree in psychology in the same way as if you decided when you finish your Leaving Cert to go and study psychology in another institution in Ireland. So you come out with a level 8 degree in psychology, which offers you avenues to study psychology at postgraduate level, or to go on and potentially work in the field of psychology to, and it's not just educational psychology that you're studying, it's rather a general degree, a level 8 degree in psychology. And you'll see that in a minute when we look at this subject choice. So at the end of the programme, you have that unique qualification. You have your primary school teaching degree, but you also have your academic qualification in psychology. So that's what makes our programme so unique, but also so attractive. So to look at the conceptual framework, this conceptual framework should look familiar to you. And this is the one that Dr. John O'Shea showed up at the start. So the middle section that you're seeing there is the framework for the BEd programme, for the Bachelor of Education programme. But then you'll also see those those words coming in around it, which are the names of some of the modules on the psychology program. So what happens is, yes, you study your Bachelor of Education program just like the Bachelor of Education students or the Bachelor of Education international students. You're studying that BEd program. But in parallel, you are also studying your psychology degree program. So you're studying those range of different subjects. So you can see social psychology, developmental psychology, research methodology, personality and individual difference. And that's just a flavour of some of them. And all you need to do is look at the program on the Mary Immaculate College website, and you'll be able to see a breakdown of each semester, what's studied in terms of education and in terms of psychology. But you're studying the 2 degrees in parallel. So in terms of a class cohort, we have between 30 and 40 students per year group. And those people who generally apply to do the Bachelor of Education in Education and Psychology program are students who may have an interest in psychology coming into the program, or an interest in education, or the combined interest. So sometimes you have students who say, you know, I've always wanted to be a primary school teacher, but I also have an interest in psychology, or I also have an interest in special education, or in students who learn in a different way, or students who are gifted, or students with neurological difficulties, and so it's students who maybe have that curiosity about education, but also the curiosity about psychology. And then there are some students who would say, no, my main interest is actually psychology, but I also do have an interest in education. So it's bringing those 2 areas together, and obviously both areas really complement each other. So for students who have a really strong desire to be a primary school teacher, the psychology degree obviously really complements that, both in terms of their theoretical understanding, but also in terms of their applied practice in the classroom. Sorry, that jumped on a bit. The students on the BEd psychology program share a lot of their lectures with the BEd students and with the BEd international students. And then in terms of their psychology lectures, they share a lot of those with the BA psychology students. And also there is that new psychology program and the Bachelor of Science in Psychology. And so they'll also be sharing them with some of those students as well. And then they also have the class-based lectures. So there are some lectures and tutorials that they have that there's just the 30 or 40 students of the BEd Psych program on their own together. And then, as I said, for other lectures, they're with the BEd students, or they're with the BA psychology students. So it's quite nice. You get to know students across different programs. You get to share lectures with them, but also you're in that nice small home class base. So you do know your classmates very well by the end of the program. You know, it's that small 30 to 40. And as program leader, I would get to know the students across each year group very well, as would other lecturers. So to give you a sample of a semester, this would be what the current first years would be studying. So you see the first 6 subjects that are shown to you there: Professional Placement 1, Language and Literacy 1, and Gaeilge agus Múna na Gaeilge, STEM 1, Schools and Society 1, and Psychology of Learning and Development. They are all the education subjects that the students are studying as part of the BEd part of the programme. And then you see on the other side, you have Introduction to Psychology and Research Methodology 1, and that is the psychology component of their programme. And as they move through the programme, that varies in terms of weighting. So towards the latter side of the programme, you start to see more psychology in the programme, and the education subjects are less, because, as John said, in the final semester of 4th year, of the first semester of 4th year, so autumn of 4th year, students are out on school placement, and then they come back and there's a lot more psychology in their final semester. So what does the structure of the programme look like? Well, as I said to you, there's both the education and the psychology degrees happening in parallel. So you have about 58 student units of study, and that can vary slightly, but you're talking across your units of study. You're going to have professional placement, just like the BEd or the BEd International students. You're going to have lectures, you're going to have projects, and you're going to undertake an undergraduate dissertation in psychology. So that is in your final year, you will be undertaking a final year thesis or project in psychology. And it's a big component of your research, a big component of your study across the 4 years, and it's heavily weighted towards your degree in the end. And then obviously across the whole program, you are doing those various modules, as you saw before, in education, in psychology, and in research methodologies. So you're learning to be a researcher, to conduct research, so that in that final year, both the teacher as researcher, but also the teacher or the psychologist as researcher, you are undertaking that piece of research. It's applied piece of research that you then can, write up as a final year thesis. And you also have the option in your last semester to do an elective in psychology. So there's lots of different elective choices, and this gives students the option, to look into an area that they may not have had the opportunity before. So this is kind of a different area to their final year study, and it gives that element of choice. So going back to that idea of the undergraduate dissertation in psychology, how does that run? Well, you undertake your research individually, but you have group supervision. So there would be one supervisor, let's say myself, who would take on a group of potentially 5 or 6 students, and we would supervise you as a group, but you're undertaking an individual piece of research. And during that, you have access to psychology-based equipment, so things like the eye tracker technology, the SuperLab software, PowerLab, blood pressure monitors, camcorders. So students can undertake their research in an array of different areas. And we've had students looking at things like stress. So that's where the blood pressure monitors might come in. They might look at things like assessment in the classroom. They might look at sports psychology related research. So it might be to do with group dynamics, social loafing, lots of different areas. And so what often happens is, as students move through the 4 years of their program, they're undertaking their studies in their education and in their psychology, and they spark an interest in a certain area. So they might, for example, start to see that they really have an interest in sports related psychology, or they might say, no, I'm really enjoying the education side of psychology and I'd love to do a bit more research in that area, or I'm really interested in health psychology, or whatever. And they decide then to undertake their final research in that area. And they can do applied research. So as I said, some students are out in classrooms doing that research, and then others do more desk-based research. So they might undertake, some bit of research to do with the data that's already there. So like data related to the Growing Up in Ireland study, for example. So they're taking that research that's already being conducted and maybe running some statistical analysis on it. And from that, students have the opportunity to present their research at the Psychological Society of Ireland All-Ireland Student Congress. They also have it at the All-Ireland Conference of Undergraduate Research, and also we hold our own conference within Mary Immaculate College, which we call PsychFest, which gives the opportunity to 4th year students to present their psychology research to other students within the college. And it's normally the 1st, 2nd and 3rd year BEd psychology students and BA psychology students who would be really interested in going to see PsychFest, because it gives them food for thought on what they might do in terms of their own research. Across the 4 years, as I said, you'll also engage in professional placement. So just like the BEd or the BEd International programme, it's vital that you undertake this professional placement so that your degree is accredited by the Teaching Council of Ireland. So you're undertaking approximately 24 weeks over your 4 years, and part of that will be observation, part of it will be actual teaching and participating in school life. And what Dr. John O'Shea would have talked about, that idea of potentially undertaking your school placement in schools maybe near home, or the school that you attended as a student yourself. Those opportunities are available to you on the BEd Psych programme as well. You also undertake Gaeltacht placement, where you do 2 sets of 2 weeks, and that's the same as the BEd or the BEd International programme. And finally, you undertake applied placement, and this is an opportunity to apply your knowledge of psychology to an educational environment other than a mainstream setting. So you might have students here who might attend a special school or attend a special class that is attached to a mainstream school, those kind of settings where students start to go in and start to look at teaching and learning in a different way. So what about these students who maybe have autism, for example? What about students who have a language delay or a language disorder? You know, what can education offer these students? And also, how can I apply my knowledge of psychology to this setting to maybe better support these students? So it's a really lovely opportunity to bring both components of your program together in the applied placement. This is just to give you a sense of some of the achievements of our BEd psychology students. We're extremely proud of our programme, and we're extremely proud of the graduates of our programme. And we have had huge success from our programme and from our students over the past number of years. You can see there highlighted, we have had students who have won the All-Ireland Student Congress, and they've won the top prize. And just look at the years there, right across 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, we have won that. And just to make that clear, that is an All-Ireland Congress where students studying psychology all across Ireland, so you're talking all of the other big institutions that teach psychology, all come together to present their final research that they conducted in psychology. And they present that to their peers within their own college, but also to their peers nationwide. And then also you have lecturers like myself and others who will adjudicate on the day. And you can see Mary Immaculate College has won the top prize across all of those years. So we have huge pride in our programme, but we've had huge success because the strength of the research that our students conduct is really, really high. The quality is really high, and this is recognised at a national level. And we've also had a range of students who have been highly commended at those awards as well, right through. We've had at the annual conference. So the PSI annual conference is different. This is where people like myself, so lecturers, researchers, people who are qualified and working in the field of psychology nationwide come together. But every year since 2014, we have had a student symposium at that. So what we have is the graduates of our programme, roughly 4 or 5 of them, come together, and I put into the annual conference this student symposium. So 4 or 5 of our students come together and they present to professionals in the field, so to practicing psychologists, to practicing lecturers, and to researchers. And every year we've had huge positive feedback from these students because they're presenting student-based research at a national level, and it's really highly received. We've also have students who have won the Global Undergraduate Awards competition. So this is a competition that students in Mary Immaculate College and across Ireland enter, but you're up against students globally. So students from Australia, America, Europe, etc., where they would also put in essays from their degree. So it could be an essay that students have written in their final year or in their second last year. And they put in those essays into this competition, and we have had students highly commended in the psychology categories and in the education categories across all of those years. You can see 2021, 2019, etc. And we actually won the overall category back in 2012. So we've had, you know, huge success at that global level as well from the BEd Psych programme. We've had students who have presented at national conferences for special education. So you see there the IATSE conference, Poster Award in 2019, and a range of other awards, national, international conference presentations, college-based awards. And we've also had students who have published their own final year research in peer-reviewed journals. So like the REACH Journal, the Irish Educational Studies, the Children's Research Digest, and the Irish Teachers Journal. So these are very very, very high quality journals that our students have managed to publish in from their final year research. And they've also published in practitioner magazines like the Irish Psychologist or the In Touch magazine. So one of the big questions that I always get asked on these open days, as well as by email contact, is what can you do when you finish the programme? So when you finish the programme, and I started the presentation with this, and it's a good way to finish as well, you finish with your dual degree. So you have your degree in education, which is your primary school teaching degree, but you also have your academic qualification in psychology, which is accredited by the Psychological Society of Ireland. So if you look at the left-hand side of the slides, you can see from the education point of view, you can go straight in and teach and start a career in primary school teaching. So you can teach in a mainstream setting or in a special education setting, just like your colleagues on the BEd programme or the BEd International programme. And then some students go on and decide that they might do a postgraduate study in education, which can lead to careers in leadership positions in education or working with other education settings like the PDST, for example. Or even we've had students who go on to do third level lecturing or do other areas like play therapy. So they might decide, yes, I love primary teaching, but I want to do additional studies in the area, for example, of play therapy, and they go on to do further work in that area. But remember, you also have a degree in psychology when you finish this programme. So many of our students will go on to do postgraduate studies in psychology, which can lead to careers in educational psychology, developmental, neuropsychology, health, sports psychology, third level lecturing, research, etc., etc. And I myself am a graduate of the BEd psychology programme. I was one of the first students on the first year that the BEd psych programme came out. So I went on and I became an educational psychologist. That's the road I went down after teaching for a number of years. I became an educational psychologist and then I moved into third level lecturing. But we, as I say, have had students who have finished the BEd psychology programme and have gone on to study in an array of different areas. So as I say, not just educational psychology, but in any of those other domains of psychology. All of those areas are open to students, as is teaching, and all of the areas open on that side of the degree. So that brings me to a close. I know there will be plenty of questions, there always are every year, so feel free, as Patrick said, to put your questions into the question and answer section or the chat feature, and we will answer them after the final presentation. So thank you for your time, and we'll take questions afterwards.
Thanks very much, Claire, for a very detailed presentation there on the BEd in Education and Psychology. I think some people are having issues maybe viewing the slides, so we'll try correct this for the next presentation, but you might also remember that all of these presentations are being recorded, and they will be available on our CEO hub. That's www.mic.ie/CEO. So you will be able to view them in the coming days there. If you still are having some difficulty seeing the slides, they should be up on the recordings. So our next presentation is on the BA in Early Childhood Care and Education. And I suppose it's a program really, if you're interested in working with young children before primary school level, then it's definitely one that you should be considering. So I'm now going to pass you over to Dr. Mary Moloney, and Mary will tell you all that you need to know about the program.
Hello everyone. You are very welcome to this presentation, which tells you a lot of information about the Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Care and Education at Mary Immaculate College. My name is Dr. Mary Moloney, and I am the course leader for the Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Care and Education. In this presentation, we will take a very brief look at early childhood care and education in Mary Immaculate College. We will look at the importance of early childhood care and education, and we will look at the detail of the BA in Early Childhood Care and Education here at Mary Immaculate College, and we will finish up by looking at the various career pathways upon graduating from the programme. So we are often asked, what is the BA in Early Childhood Care and Education? Well, it is a professional qualification that specialises in early childhood Care and Education for Children from Birth to 6 years old. So it is for students who are interested in learning about how children from birth right up to school-going age learn and develop in these early childhood years. Mary Immaculate College has a long history and a good reputation in terms of offering the BA, offering it for the first time in 2003. In 2021, the CAO minimum entry requirement was 409 points, and each year we offer up to 80 places on this Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Care and Education. Throughout the programme, which is run over 4 years, you will engage in lectures and tutorials. And some of our lectures are shared with the BEd students, particularly in Year 4, when you will share modules around the final year undergraduate dissertation. We are often asked why it is important to study early childhood. And as I said to you earlier, the period we are talking about is the period from birth right through to 6 years when children generally start primary school. Did you know, though, that 90% of a child's brain development happens before age 5, which means that the way in which we work with young children is very important. During the period from birth to 5, learning happens at a speed that will never be equalled in the life course. It sets children up for learning in early childhood, through school and throughout life. Neuroscientific evidence tells us that this is the most important time in a child's development, and therefore we need to get it right in this period for young children. It is the time when their dispositions for learning, their love of learning are established. And of course, we know that this is so important for all children, but it is even more important when we talk about children with special educational needs and children who come from socio-economic backgrounds. And neuroscientific evidence again tells us that early experiences affect the quality of the brain architecture by establishing either a sturdy or a fragile foundation for all of the learning, health and behaviour that follows. And that is why when we offer the BA in Early Childhood Care and Education at Mary Immaculate College, we want our early childhood teachers to be the best possible teachers they can be in terms of working with these younger children upon graduation. Our youngest children deserve, want and need the best possible teachers, and that is the purpose of the degree in Early Childhood Care and Education here at Mary Immaculate College. Our government have a vision for early childhood, and you can find detail about this vision in First 5, a whole of government strategy for babies, young children and their families, which was published by the government in 2018. Throughout the 4 years of the degree programme, we talk about bioecological systems theory, which means that the child is at the centre of everything we do, and those around the child, beginning in the home, moving into the early childhood setting, into primary school, into the community, all shape that child's development. A core aspect of our programme throughout the 4 years is to help our early childhood teachers to understand, to gain the knowledge, the skills and the attributes required to work collaboratively with parents, with the health services, with key people within the community to ensure that our youngest children have the best possible start in life and that they are prepared for the transition to school and the continuum of education between primary school and preschool. Here you will see the various strands of the Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Care and Education. And we begin with some of the greats who have influenced our understanding of young children and have shaped how we work with them. So, for example, you will be exploring Maria Montessori's philosophy, Steiner, and more recently, the Reggio approach, which is the approach used in Northern Italy. You will look in depth at child development for that period from birth to 6. You will look at child health and well-being, which, as we know, is fundamental to children's life chances. You will look at curriculum and pedagogy, and not just curriculum in the context of Ireland. And as you know, we have ASHTR, the Early Childhood Curriculum Framework for children from birth to 6 years. We also have SHIELTA, the National Quality Framework. Alongside both these practice frameworks, you will also be introduced to international models of early childhood curriculum. So, for example, you will study Te Whāriki from New Zealand, Being, Belonging and Becoming, the early childhood curriculum in Australia. We will explore the Early Years Foundation stage in the UK, the Curriculum for Excellence in Scotland. So you will be exposed to multiple curricula and multiple ways of working with, understanding and supporting and facilitating children's learning and development in the most formative years of their development. Professional practice is an integral part of the BA in Early Childhood here at Mary Immaculate College, and I will talk to you a little more about that in a couple of minutes. And we also support, encourage and facilitate our students to be reflective early childhood teachers. Not to take anything at face value, but to question and to question deeply, to interrogate the literature, to interrogate policy, to interrogate practice, to interrogate early childhood curriculum. And in this way, to build their knowledge, to build their understanding, their capacity and their own disposition for working with young children. So when we look at early childhood in that lovely period, a distinct period in the child's life from birth to 6, we focus in the BA in Early Childhood Care and Education on the child's holistic learning and development. We do not see the child as learning discrete subjects. Rather, we focus on integrated learning. So when a child is looking at a book, for example, and looking at pictures and trying to understand letters and words, we feel that there is much more going on than simply looking at the pictures. They are learning about colour. They're learning about a sense of direction as words flow from left to right. They're learning about shape, letter formation. They're learning about position. They're learning concentration. They're learning task orientation. Likewise, when children are sitting having their lunch, chatting to their friends, think about the social and emotional development that is going on, and also broader development as they chat about what they're eating for their lunch, chat to their friends, talk about the things that they've been doing in the setting all morning. We believe very strongly in this notion of active learning, so the child's agency, their autonomy within the early childhood setting and classroom, the level of choice that the children have, their capacity to make decisions about their own learning, supported and facilitated by the early childhood teacher. And there is so much more that I could tell you, but these are some of the things that you will learn about within the degree programme in Early Childhood Care and Education. It is so important that we mention the learning environment because we believe in the importance of the learning environment, both indoors and outdoors, not just within the confines of the classroom or the early childhood setting, but that the outdoor learning environment is equally important for the children. And so a huge element of the programme talks about outdoor learning, learning in nature, risk-taking, all of which is so important for children's learning and development, building resilience, trust, and children's positive dispositions towards learning. Again, just a very quick overview of the types of modules that you will be undertaking through the 4 years of the degree programme. So as I said, you will be looking at child health and well-being. You will be looking at the child, the family and the community, linking back to what I said earlier on about the child being supported by various people and systems within the learning environment and within their community. You will look in depth at child development from birth right through to 6 years. The role of play in children's development. And we know in this fundamental period of development that play is the most appropriate mechanism for children's learning and development. It is how children communicate. It is how children learn about the world, experiment and make sense of the world. You will look at creative arts, language and early literacy, cultural and linguistic diversity. As I said earlier, curriculum, different models of curriculum, pedagogy, how you engage with curriculum, how you plan it, implement it, evaluate it. There is a very strong element in the programme on including children with special educational needs within the early years setting. You will do creative music in the early years. We will look at leadership and management because, as you will see later on, many of our graduates go into positions of leadership and management upon graduation. There is an undergraduate final year dissertation, which is a core element of our programme. And this is undertaken in semester 7 and semester 8 in the programme. And this is an opportunity for you to undertake a dissertation in an area of your choosing and to go and undertake some small-scale research study. It could be on children's language development. It could be on shared story reading with children. It could be animal-assisted therapy. These are just some of the areas that students in the past and are currently engaging with in terms of their undergraduate dissertation. This is your opportunity to show the wealth of knowledge that you have and your wealth of experience, having gained it over the 4 years of the degree programme. And it is an opportunity for students to shine in an area that they are passionate about. And it is also your legacy to the students coming behind you and the satisfaction that students get from undertaking this research and adding to the learning and understanding in the field of early childhood care and education. As I mentioned earlier, professional practice placement is an integral aspect of the programme here in Mary Immaculate College. Students engage in 27 weeks approximately of professional practice placement over the 4 years of the degree programme. This professional practice placement is undertaken in a variety of settings and contexts. There are opportunities for you to work with and to gain knowledge and understanding of working with children from birth to 3 and children aged from 3 to 6 years. Over the 4 years of the degree programme, you will have multiple opportunities to gain hands-on experience with these children, as I said, in a variety of settings and contexts. So you will work, for example, in community early childhood care and education settings and in privately owned early childhood care and education settings. You will work in settings that cater for the whole range, birth to 6, offering full daycare provision, but you will also get experience in settings that provide care and education for children from age 3 up to school-going age only. You will also gain experience of working with children in primary school contexts, where again you can get first-hand experience of how the continuum of education from preschool right through to the infant classes in primary school operates in practice. There is an exciting opportunity in third year for students to engage in international practice placement. And so, with our partner universities through an Erasmus Plus programme, there are opportunities to work and study in Denmark, Norway and Spain. And further details of this is available on our website for the Early Childhood programme at Mary Immaculate College. So, what happens after your degree when you qualify? Upon graduation, you are a specialist in early childhood care and education. The BA from Mary Immaculate College is highly regarded nationally and internationally. And to give you a flavour of some of the opportunities upon graduation, many of our students work in the sector directly with children aged from birth to 6. They become room leaders in early childhood settings. They take on the role of management in early childhood settings. They also, some of them, establish their own early childhood care and education business. As I said to you, the degree is regarded and well regarded nationally. Many of our graduates from 2007, for example, and later graduates 2011, 2015, are now employed by the Department of Education as early years inspectors, going into settings, inspecting the education component of programmes for very young children in settings before school. Some of our graduates are also employed by TUSLA as preschool inspectors, looking at the health and safety of provision for children from birth to 6. We also have students who undertake postgraduate training, and some of our graduates have gone on and done speech and language therapy and play therapy, for example. We have graduates who work for Better Start, the national mentoring programme that is operated by PUBL and the Department of Children here in Ireland. They work for the city and county childcare committees. So as you can see, the possibilities are endless. The degree not only trains our graduates to be early childhood specialists with the capacity, the knowledge, the skills and the disposition to work with children directly birth to 3 and and 3 to 6, but also to take on other important roles within that sector. And many of our students go abroad and work in places as far afield as New Zealand, Australia, Canada and the UK. I hope that I have given you a good overview of what is involved in the exciting and innovative BA in Early Childhood Care and Education at Mary Immaculate College. I hope it has whetted your appetite for the degree, and I hope to see some of you come to Mary Immaculate College to undertake the degree in the coming years. Thank you so much for listening, and if you have any further questions, please feel free to get in touch at mary.moloney@mic.ul.ie. Thank you.
I might just put a couple of questions to some of our earlier presenters. So maybe first question to Sarah. I have a question here on the international, Bachelor of Education International. So Sarah, Cleana was wondering, is the international primary teaching the only course that qualifies you to teach abroad, or are the add-on primary teaching courses such as the psychology one that you can do to be qualified to teach abroad?
Okay, that's a great question, Patrick, and we should be quite clear about this. The Bachelor of Education International doesn't give you a sort of an international like registration to teach abroad. Okay, so at the end of the program, you have a professional qualification to teach in Ireland. Now, what happens is in certain jurisdictions, like there are parts of Australia that accept the Bachelor of Education as a teaching qualification, but the BEd International is not designed to give you a qualification to teach anywhere in the world. It's important to emphasise that. So it gives you a professional qualification in Ireland, and it gives you specialisation in international education issues and trends and so on, but it's not a license to teach anywhere in the world. That would require an awful lot of geopolitical manoeuvring that just isn't in our power. But like I say, there are jurisdictions like in parts of Australia that does recognise a degree like the Bachelor of Education and International as a valid entrance into teaching. I hope that makes it clear.
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. Thanks for clarifying that. Next question, then, I might put it to John. John, we have a person here just asking a question. I presume it's just probably in the context of COVID, maybe over the last year or two. They're wondering, if a student lives far away from the college, does the student have the option to do these courses online?
No, Patrick, is the answer to that. So the program is a program that is taught on campus, and students are expected to be on campus. So I suppose it's necessary to be clear on that. It is not a distance learning program. Yeah, that's it, John. Yeah, I'd say that was probably someone possibly thinking in terms of COVID. Obviously, some of our lectures had to go online over the last year or two, but I know this is very much a full-time program, so you would be expected to attend on campus. There's another one here, John. I just put it to you as well. It's just about this person, Shane, too. He wants to know, do you need higher level maths for primary teaching? So no, Shane, you don't need higher level maths. There are necessary qualifications, and for Gaeilge in particular. There are necessary qualifications for English and mathematics too, but not higher level mathematics. But you can view the exact details on mic.ul.ie on the undergraduate programs and the entry requirements there. Yeah,
and actually, I'm just looking at it here, John. I think the entry requirement for maths, it's if you do ordinary level, it's an 04, and if you do higher level, it's a H7. So you're dead right. You don't necessarily have to do higher level maths if you don't want to. Couple of more questions in here. This one is about school placement, so I might just put it to you as well, John. Laura Jean Scanlon, she wants to know, how are you assessed in your school placements? Do you complete a portfolio of work? And are teachers in the school assessing your work, or is a lecturer from MIC supervising you? So
that's a good question. So you're assessed by a member of staff, of MIC staff, who will travel to the school and who will look at your paperwork and also look at your teaching, okay? And they will do that over a number of different occasions for the time that you'll spend in the school, and you will engage in a dialogue with them after their visit in the school, and you will be graded, and then as a result of those visits and as a result of the paperwork that the supervisor might or will look at.
Okay, thanks, John. We have a question now on the BEd in Education and Psychology, so I'll put this to Claire. Claire, this is from Queeveen Sweeney, and he wants to know, can you study abroad with the BEd in Education and Psychology?
Yeah, good question. So currently, Queeveen, the answer is no, because the program is extremely busy, as you can imagine, because you're doing your 2 degrees in parallel. So as a result, we don't have the opportunity where you can take a full semester and go abroad. However, what we do have, and what we're in the process of trying to create, are further international links where, for example, a student might decide that they want to do their applied placement abroad. So that's the 2-week placement that I spoke about previously, where you get to look at education, through a psychological lens. So we have had students who have gone to America or to Europe for that applied placement and have gone to an alternate education setting over there. As it stands, you can't take a semester abroad. You have to do your 4 years of your BEd psychology program at Mary Immaculate College. But as I say, there are options, to do a fortnight, 3 weeks, something like that abroad as part of the applied placement. And we also are establishing international links where, students who may have an interest in doing a summer school, for example, in an American college. So those links are being fostered at the moment. The opportunity to do applied placement abroad is there, but to do a semester abroad, that is not possible as it currently stands.
Thanks very much, Claire. And just maybe update people there, just Dr. Mary Moloney, she's actually had a blackout in her area. The electricity is gone, so she's no power and no Wi-Fi. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to get Mary back online today, but we'll continue on with the questions anyway. And if any of you do have a question, please use the chat function and I can put it to our presenters. So just have another question there for Sarah in relation to the Bachelor of Education International. And Sarah, this person, Amy O'Dwyer, she wants to know how many students are accepted each year for the international program.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. So on average, it's about 15. It's a small group. This year we have a few more. We have 17, but that's pretty much the average.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next question then we have is from Rebecca Donegan, and I might just answer this myself. Rebecca just wants to know, is there an open day that we can go to visit the campus this year? Well, Rebecca, we're hoping to have an on-campus open day here in Limerick in early January. So if you just want to keep an eye on our CAO hub, that's mic.ie/CEO, we'll have the dates and details of that confirmed in due course. And I suppose, look, all of this depends on the current health guidelines in relation to COVID-19. We will have an on-campus open day on our MIC Thurles campus, and that will be on Saturday, the 6th of November. And obviously there'll be smaller numbers maybe attending that, so that will be an on-campus event if you want to get to that. And obviously there's more information on our CEO Hub about that as well if you want to take a look at that. Question then, and I might put this to John, it's supposed to do with the Bachelor of Education. This person, John Orla Fleming, she wants to know, can anyone transfer from the BA to the BEd in second year?
So you have to satisfy the entry requirements of the CAO for the programme. What can happen and what has happened is if, for example, Mary is somewhere you want to study the BEd, and perhaps you have the points, but it wasn't your first choice and you got a place in a different college. After the first year, we will accept you back. We will accept you into Mary from a place where you are currently doing a BEd. But as it stands, you need to satisfy CAO entry to get a place within the program, and that means, you know, achieving those points. Now, if you get the points and you find yourself, your offer is the BA, and you find yourself in the first week or two with those points and satisfy the entry criteria, then we have had instances in the past where students have transferred into the program within the college, but you need to satisfy the points entry requirements. And very often what happens is students may get a recheck here and there, and obviously rechecks don't come in until you're back in, until you're in the third level system in Mary. And you know, if that recheck allows you or satisfies the CAO entry requirements, well then you can transfer into the BEd program. But it's important that you just cannot complete a first year in another program, then come into the BEd, because you would have missed out.
Yeah, exactly, John. So I suppose basically in the year of application, you have to meet the points and you have to meet the entry requirements. And I suppose, look, if anyone does have a query about transferring or anything like that, you can always contact our admissions office at admissions@mic.ul.ie, and they'll talk you through your own particular situation. So just to follow up to that one, John, we have a question here from Emer Sheehan, and Emer is just wondering about placement. She wants to know, will the college arrange the placement, or is it up to the student to arrange it?
So there's a mix, Emer. There's a mix. The college will source the first placement for you, indeed, and the student or yourself, you will source other placements. So it's a mix between college sourced and student sourced placement. If the college sources the placement and that placement is in the Limerick area, you know, travel to and from the school to Mary Mackle College is provided, so you don't need to worry in that regard. And when the student sources a placement, then normally it's around their own home area, and obviously that's your choice of where to go then. But it's a balance and a mix between both.
Okay, thanks very much, John. A couple of questions now about the Bachelor of Education in Educational Psychology, so I'll put them to Claire. So Claire, Amy O'Brien is wondering, what's the workload like with a dual degree? I suppose she's taking it out in terms of education and psychology. It's probably in terms of hours and I suppose the general workload.
Yeah, it's a great question. It is a busy and challenging program. There's no denying that. It is a dual degree program. So you are doing your teaching qualification alongside your academic qualification in psychology. So yes, it's busy and it's challenging. However, entry requirements to the course are high. Patrick, you can verify this, but I think there were 590, the CAO points for this year. Am I right saying that?
Yeah, I double checking. I have them written down beside me. Yeah, this year they were 590.
Yeah, so 590. So as you can see, the points to get onto the program are high. And so when students come onto the program, those students, you know, are generally ready for that academic challenge and are ready for the demanding nature of the program. When we ask students on the program, you know, how do you find the program? Is it busy? Is it challenging, etc.? They would always say yes to all of those questions. It's busy, it's challenging, but it's sufficiently challenging, you know, and that they enjoy the challenge that's there for them, and they feel that both sides of the program, the education and the psychology, complement each other, and so they can see that cross referencing from lectures. So I would say that for any students on the programme, it isn't to the point that it's so challenging that it's too much. And our retention rate on the programme is extremely high. We always have students, you know, that go from one year into the next. Our dropout rate is almost minimal. And, you know, that is a very clear sign of the strength of the programme and the positivity of that. The other thing to say is that there's a huge amount of student supports within the college. And I know Patrick might refer to this, but you know, there are supports in place for students who might find that they're struggling in an area. So there's student supports in terms of academic supports, counselling supports, chaplaincy, etc. So if there's an occasion across the 4 years of the programme that you do feel you need that extra bit of support, the college is very available to offer those supports. And as programme leader as well, I would be very in tune with the students, as would all the other programme leaders. So if it's a case that there's something happening over the 4 years of the programme that you need more college support, we as programme leaders would be there to support and to guide you to the right place to get that support. So yes, challenging, but you know, doable and rewarding. Thanks, Patrick.
Okay, and just a follow on to that question, Claire, Caitlin DC wants to know, is there a lot of science involved in the programme?
Well, psychology is science-based. So yes, it's the study of human behavior. So human behavior is it's the scientific study of human behavior, but it's not science as you would traditionally imagine it from secondary school, for example. So there isn't, for example, chemistry involved in it. For students who join the programme in first year, if they've done Leaving Cert Biology, that can be helpful. But on a personal level, I didn't do Leaving Cert Biology, and you know, I didn't feel at a massive disadvantage. So yes, it can be helpful because you are looking at the biological basis of behavior. So you are looking at things like neurons and synapses and how the brain works, etc. But you're starting all of that in first year. So if you don't have the science behind that, that's okay. If you're curious about psychology and you're not clear on what it actually looks like or what it feels like, my advice to you would be, you know, start to have a read online of psychology, but even buy or borrow from the library an introduction to psychology book, because that will give you a good sense of what psychology is, because it can be that subject that a lot of us aren't fully clear on what it is, but you're studying the science of behavior. So everything from how children think, how children learn, how people interact in groups, everything, because it's not, as I say, just educational psychology, it's all domains of psychology. Thanks, Patrick.
No bother at all. And I suppose the next question here then, I'll put it to you as well, Claire. It's another one from Joseph. He just wants to know, is there the same specialist modules such as music in the B.Ed with psychology, or is that only in the B.Ed?
Okay, yeah, good question. So on the B.Ed psychology programme, the students don't do a specialism in education subjects, because your program is so demanding with the psychology element. You can't do a specialism in your education subjects. I suppose in ways your specialism is deemed psychology. You still study the teaching of all of those areas. So you still are studying the teaching of English, the teaching of maths, the teaching of music, etc., etc. So you still get all of that knowledge base that the B.Eds are getting, but you don't specialise in a curricular area like the B.Eds would. Rather, you're specialising in your degree subject of psychology, if that makes sense. And if John wants to come in there, you're welcome.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So you are busy enough in the B.Ed Psych program with your B.Ed and your psychology. And so the B.Ed is different in that regard. Yeah,
thanks, John.
Okay, and just a follow-on question from Joseph, John, I'll put it to you as well. He just wants to know, is the Gaeltacht and professional placement taken at the same time, I suppose, as the B.Ed students take it? So
yes, so I should have mentioned that in my presentation. So it's mandatory in all of the B.Ed programs to do a Gaeltacht placement. Currently, it's 2 times 2. So you'll have two occasions. It's normally in January between the first and second semester of first year, and it's in the summer term of third year, and you will go to a college of your choice in a Gaeltacht area. It's funded by the Department of Education and Science, so it's fully funded in that regard, accommodation and tuition, but it's mandatory that you attend that course and you satisfactorily complete that course as well. And also I should have mentioned as well, Patrick, there is the opportunity to study abroad in the BEd programme as well. So should you wish to go abroad, if you don't want to, you don't have to, but should you wish to go abroad in third year, you can for a semester also. It's something I admit as well.
Thanks a million, John. Just for any of our attendees that are interested in the BA in Early Childhood Care and Education, I think Dr. Mary Moloney has managed to get in for on the chat function. So if you do have any questions for her, maybe pop it into the chat function. Mary might be able to reply to you there if you do have any queries. So I'll continue on with the questions for the moment. This one probably goes to you as well, John. It's from a student who wants to know, does the Bachelor of Education, can you go abroad and study education with the level 8 diploma? I suppose presumably they mean the level 8 degree, and will that degree be recognised in other European countries? Okay, so in terms of study, you can. I mean, it's a level 8 program recognised on the NFQ. It's a degree, not a diploma, and you know there are many opportunities, particularly in the EU, and we have a lot of links with colleges abroad in terms of study. And if you're asking, can you work with it abroad? There are certain areas you can work with it abroad immediately. So as I said, I mentioned the Middle East in particular. We would have a lot of students who would go to the Emirates in particular for experience, but also the UK and the EU also. We'd have teachers who work in English-speaking schools and so on. But in other jurisdictions, then it requires further certification. So in terms of work, you can go abroad and work with it. Yes. Can you study abroad? Like any other degree, you know, it is a level 8 degree program on the NFQ, and you know it's depending on the local requirements for entry into further study, you know, it is certainly as recognised as any other degree program in the country. Thanks, John. Next question is from Mimic, and I might put it to Sarah because it's about the Bachelor of Education International. So Sarah, they want to know, do you have any partnering universities in Turkey? That's a very specific question. Yes, it is. And it's a great one because Turkey is a fascinating context. I am trying to think off the top of my head. I can't remember seeing one on the list, but I would encourage the students to have a look at the link that I included in the presentation, or I can also put that link into the chat as well, yeah, so everybody has that. We have a fairly dynamic process in terms of internationalization. So we sometimes, not always, but if the student has a relationship with a university through, you know, their background or a family member or just an institution that they're really interested in, we can reach out and try to develop partnerships. Often universities are very amenable to that. So the list that you see online in terms of our institutions is very much a living, organic list. And we welcome students' input in terms of, you know, if there are places that they would like to go to, we can look into that. So Patrick, I'll go ahead and put that link into the chat as well. Yeah, if you could do that, Sarah, that'd be great, yeah. And hopefully that'll help answer that question. We've one for you now, Claire. This person, Diego Marini, they want to know, when you graduate from the BEd and psychology degree, can you use this degree to go into the field of educational psychology, or is it necessary to do a postgrad?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so to work or to be trained as an educational psychologist, and this isn't just in Mary Immaculate College, this is nationwide, you must have postgraduate studies done in educational psychology. And at the moment, those postgraduate studies in Ireland are at doctoral level. So you must do 3 years study on a doctoral program to become an educational psychologist. So you have to do the doctorate program in educational psychology, and you have that at the moment in Mary Immaculate College. It's also run in UCD. To do that 3-year doctorate program, you must have a degree in psychology done. So you have to have, as a prerequisite, a degree in psychology, and you also must have some applied experience with children or adolescents in an education or care setting. And you'll see the entry requirements for that doctorate program on the MIC website. So to answer your question, if you do the BEd psychology program, you then are very eligible to apply for the doctorate in educational and child psychology program, which is at MIC, which is a 3-year full-time program. But you can't go directly from one program into the other because, as I said, the entry requirements state that you must have a minimum of 2 years applied experience with children or adolescents in an education or care setting. So what do a lot of our graduates do? So if you decide from your Leaving Cert that you really would like to be an educational psychologist, what a lot of our students would do would be do the BEd and psychology program. That's your 4-year undergraduate degree. They would then finish that program and go out and work for a number of years. Most of them would go and work as a primary school teacher. And during that time, they may decide to do some postgraduate studies to increase their chances of getting onto the doctorate program. Because as you can imagine, it's a competitive program to get onto. It's interview based, it's competency based, all of those things. So it's not just a walk in, you must interview and ensure your place. But they would do, a number of years of teaching, and then and potentially do some study alongside it. And then they would apply for the doctorate program. And if successful, do then their 3 years of study on the doctorate program. And that's generally how people do it. But the prerequisite to do that doctoral study is you must have a degree in psychology. So that's where the BEd psychology program is really, really helpful.
That is great, Claire. Thanks very much. Next question is from Joseph Cosgrove, and I'll put it to you, John. Joseph wants to know, in the BEd specialism, how long are these modules and what is covered in them?
Okay, so they begin in year 3 of the program, and you do 5 in total, so 5 modules, out of 55. So you'll study 55 in total between everything, and 5 will count for a specialism. There's also an additional 3 for you to dip your toe into other areas. But if, for example, you're a musician, or if you are someone who's interested in special education, or someone who's interested in theology, religious studies, you can choose 5 modules that will span years, mainly years 3 and 4. At the end of year 2, you're introduced to it, and that's the time frame for those.
Perfect. Thanks very much, John. We've just 1 or 2 questions. We have one from Mark Carroll and another one here from Emma Moore. Just wondering about moving from early childhood care into primary teaching. So maybe Mary, if she gets a chance, she could answer them on the chat. But I suppose just in essence, really, in MIC, we have the Professional Masters of Education, which is a 2-year postgraduate program, and it's for students who already have an undergraduate degree and who want to become a primary school teacher. So there's an interview, there's an oral Irish examination, and there's obviously entry requirements that you need to meet. But lots of our students who have done an early childhood care degree have gone on and successfully applied and got a place on that Professional Masters of Education. So that'll be 2 years after your undergraduate degree. So you can check that out on our website as well. There's lots of information on it. So that might be maybe an alternative way into primary teaching for some people who are thinking of going to maybe do an early childhood degree first. So next question is, I'll put it to you, John, as well. It's from Alan Whelan, and Alan wants to know, is there an opportunity to study abroad on the Bachelor of Education?
There is, Alan. Yes, there is. Yep, you can study abroad in the first semester of your 3rd year. We'd have lots of partnerships around the world, coordinated by the International Office, and both in Europe, the United States, and beyond. So yeah, you can. Is the short answer to that.
Okay, and I'll put this to you as well, John. It's from Kira, and Kira wants to know, do I have to spend some time in the Gaeltacht as part of the BEd program, even if I'm from a Gaeltacht region? So kind of an unusual one.
Yeah, so if you're from a Gaeltacht region, you will have to satisfy, you still have to satisfy the teaching council requirements, and currently they are that you complete the Gaeltacht program. Okay, what has happened in the past is people have completed a program in their own localities, for example. So you might not have to travel as others might do, but it's not an MIC requirement, it's a national requirement that you would have the search, that you would have the modules that you could only complete if you attended the course. So.
Okay, thanks for that, John. I have a question from Claire, and they're just wondering what the points were for the BEd in Education and Psychology this year. So I think we mentioned already that they were 590.
590, yeah.
Yeah, so just to make a note of that, you can check out our program page anyway. There's all the information about it on the MIC website. I have a question then from Mary Hughes. And I put this maybe to you, Sarah, just to switch it up. Mary wants to know, do you need an excellent standard of Irish to study primary school teaching?
So thanks, Mary. So you do, and Patrick, I know you might be able to feed into this as well, but you do need a higher level Irish for Bachelor of Education, isn't that right?
Yeah, so at the moment the entry requirement is a H4. Right.
Okay. So I guess that's the short answer to that question. You know, you do engage in Múna na Gaeilge and Irish language classes from first year. So it is an important part of the program, certainly. So you're supported throughout the program in your Irish language, but there is that expectation that you're coming in with the, as Patrick says, the H4 there.
Yeah, so that's your standard. A H4 is a standard that you need to meet to get on the program. We have a follow-on question to that, Sarah, from Orla. She wants to know, for the Bachelor of Education International, would the college help you get into a college abroad, or will the student have to do it themselves?
That's a great question, Orla. So the college very much supports you in that process. From first year, we start talking you through your options in terms of where you would like to go. And then in second year, we do two things. We have seminars with international colleges that give you information on things like accommodation and how to get to the campus, and you're very protected and very supported in that whole scenario. And then in second year, you would have one-on-one meetings with me where I make sure that the modules that you are going to take in the chosen university add up. So we very much hold your hand through that process. You're not expected to do that on your own. So between myself and the international office, there's loads of support there.
That's great, Sarah. Thanks. I have one now from Jackie, and I'll put this to you, John. They want to know for MI006, that's the Gaeltacht entry route. Do you need to do a portfolio, or is there an interview needed as a requirement for that?
No, there isn't. It's solely based on if you're coming into the college from a recognised Gaeltacht region.
Okay. Next question then is from Emma, and I'll put this to you, Claire. John kind of answered this maybe a little bit already, but Emma wants to know, is it possible to transfer from the primary teaching program to the BEd in Education Psychology program?
Okay, so if it's the case that you put down on your CAO form the BEd program firstly, and then you arrive into the college and realise, well, you would have got the CAO points for the BEd in psychology, that would be taken on a case basis where you would have to see. The problem is we have a limited number of places on the BEd psychology program for year to year. So we have between 30 and 40 depending on the year, and the reason it's a limited number is because from the Psychological Society of Ireland there has to be a clear ratio of lecturers to students across the psychology program. So we can't just have endless amounts of students. So if it's the case that there was capacity for you to transfer across, obviously we would facilitate that if you have met the CAO requirements, but that isn't a guarantee. So what I would be saying to you is, if you're filling out your CAO form and your first preference is to do the BEd in psychology program and you're not sure if you'd get the points, put it down as your first preference, because you could surprise yourself. And then obviously put the other BEd or BEd international programs or BA ECC program, put those down in whatever your order of preference is. Sometimes we also have queries from students who say, if I put down the BEd in psychology program and get it, and then I'm a few weeks into the program and I don't like psychology, can I transfer across to the BEd program? And in general, yes, we facilitate that. Again, if there's capacity for the program to take it. As a rule, though, once people start the BEd psychology program, they absolutely love both elements, both the BEd aspect and the psychology, and there is no question of wanting to transfer to other programs. But I suppose if people are fearful that you would do the BEd psychology and not like it and want to stay or move to the BEd program, we would do that as a college. We would, you know, do our best to facilitate that. But as John said, movement between programs, first and foremost, your CAO points, you know, you need to have met those requirements for the program, and then it's all about whether the program has the capacity to do it in that year.
Yeah, thanks very much, Claire. And look, if you do have a question about transferring, you can always contact our admissions office, as I said earlier. They're at admissions@mic.ul.ie, and they can just chat through your own particular situation. Mary is actually back online, so thanks again, Mary, for joining us. I have a question here, Mary. I might just put it to you. Kira wants to know about the BA in Early Childhood Care programme. What other career paths in addition to childcare could I pursue after graduating?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, Patrick. And just to say, there are so many pathways out of the programme. Naturally, we're training the students to work with children birth to 6. And a lot of our students will go on maybe to become managers of early childhood settings. They will become room leaders. They set up their own early childhood care and education setting. However, there are other opportunities as well, and more coming on stream all the time. So we have graduates, we'll say, from the first cohort of students back in 2007, who are now working with the inspectorate in the Department of Education. So they're inspectors looking at the education component in early childhood settings. We have graduates who work with TUSLA as preschool inspectors, going in to inspect health and safety in settings. They work with city and county childcare committees. A number of our students opt each year to go abroad, where their qualification in early childhood care and education, interestingly enough, is recognised as a teaching qualification to work with children in schools in other jurisdictions. So many pathways out of the programme. And of course, there's always the potential for students as well to go on and do postgraduate study. And again, each year, a number of them do. They go on, they do maybe speech and language therapy, play therapy, all of those different avenues out of the programme.
That's great, Mary. Thanks a million. I have a couple of people here wondering just about timetables. I suppose some of them are for the Bachelor of Education. So what I might do is I'll put up a link in the chat function just so you can see some of the current timetables and what they're like, and just in terms of the hours, and just see, you know, if it might give you some idea about what the actual hours would be for it. Next question, I might put it to Claire. Claire Jack, he wants to know, if you didn't like psychology after getting into the BEd and psychology program, could you transfer to the BEd only? Kind of
So I just discussed that if there's capacity on the program to transfer back to the BEd program, that we facilitate that as long as you've met the requirements. And obviously, if you got the points for BEd psychology program in a typical year, they would be higher than the BEd program. So yes, that would be facilitated. As I say, it's very unusual that a student would do that, but we wouldn't stop you from doing it if you really weren't happy on the BEd psychology program and wanted to be on the BEd program. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. We have a question from Nicole, and I'll put it to you, John. They want to know, do you need a language to get into or onto one of the programs, such as French, for example?
So no, Nicole, the only language requirement is the Gaeilge requirement for entry. And so any of the languages that you will explore when you come into the college, like German or French, we've actually had students who've taken French or indeed German who've never studied it before, and the supports are there to help you in that regard. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Okay, I've one for you now, Mary, from Margaret Murphy, and they want to know, is there placement for early childhood care and education, and is it in a play school, creche or primary school? What are the options?
Margaret, a great question. And there are so many opportunities for placement. Students roughly do 27 weeks of placement over the 4 years of the programme. And placements are broken down into placement with children birth to 3, children 3 to 6. And those placements are undertaken in a broad range of settings, including full day care. So children, say, who would be there from birth right through to when they go to school. Settings that provide the free preschool year scheme, so catering for children from age 3 right up to school going as well. We would have NENRA, so the Irish medium settings. Students get valuable placement in primary schools throughout the programme as well. And of course, the purpose of that is to see the continuum of education between early childhood and primary school. Number of our students are throughout the programme, they will also be placed maybe in early intervention settings. They get experience in community run settings, privately owned settings. They work for the city and county childcare committees, getting work placements. They may go in and work for places like Barnardo's, Early Childhood Ireland. So a vast array of work experience, because again, it's a multidisciplinary programme. So while our focus is on working with children from birth to 6, we are also very, very keen that our students get valuable experience working with parents, learning how to communicate with parents, looking at that continuum of education between early childhood and primary school. So what it looks like to collaborate with the school. So vast experience over the 4 years, but there has to be experience with all of those different age groups in a variety of settings.
That's great. Thanks, Mary. So just lots of different placement options available there. Next question is from Mark Carroll, and I put this to you, Sarah. They want to know if TEFL, so teaching English as a foreign language, is that one of the courses involved in international primary teaching?
Thank you, Mark, for that question. It's funny, it's come up a couple of times. The short answer is no, we don't have a module called TEFL, but what you will be doing from the first year is modules in language and literacy development. And so maybe the components that you might associate with TEFL, like understanding second language acquisition and figuring out how to support students' phonetic development and phonological development, those are all dealt with in those language and literacy modules. And they're not specific to teaching English. They're I suppose general to teaching to teaching first language, but children who have additional language needs as well. So you vary a core part of the BEd programme. It's just not labelled within TEFL packaging, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sarah. Ciara Kelleher, John, has a question then about school placements. And they want to know, are school placements in Gael schools as well as English-based speaking schools or not?
It's a good question. So yes, they can be. Should you wish to undertake placement in a Gael school, a school an Gaeilge or school sa Gaeltacht, you can. So certainly we accommodate every type of school.
Thanks very much, John. Vivian then wants to know, I might take this question myself, what courses are on the Thurles campus and what are on the Limerick campus? Well, all the courses in this session are on the Limerick campus, Vivian, as well as our Bachelor of Arts degree, our new a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and obviously a BA in Contemporary and Applied Theatre Studies. On our Thurles campus in County Tipperary, we have 6 programs that qualify you as a post-primary school teacher in subjects like business, accounting, religion, Irish and math. So if you just want to maybe check out the website, you'll be able to see all of that there. So next question is from Jack, and this is for you, Claire. Jack wants to know, is there the same specialist modules such as music in the BEd with psychology, or is that only for the Bachelor of Education? And is professional placement taken at the same time as the BEd students take it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sorry, there's just background noise here, 1 second. So in terms of school placement, yes, school placement happens at the same time as the BEd students. So yes, there is that comparison where the modules are at the same time. I think that's, as across the 4 years, it is the case where they're generally always in parallel happening. In terms of the first part of the question, Patrick? was
The first part
specialism.
Yeah, specialism
Yeah.
such as music, or is that only on the B.Ed only, they want to know?
Yeah, no. So again, we've answered this previously. The specialism that the students on the B.Ed psychology program, they don't do a specialism in education. The specialism they do is psychology as their degree subject. So, and as I said this previously, they are still studying each of the teaching of maths, teaching of music, teaching. So they get all of that learning that is required, but they don't do a specialism in those areas. Thanks, Patrick.
Okay, thanks very much. Next question then that we have, it's another one for you as well, Claire. This person wants to know, Tara, is there a postgraduate course for the education in psychology, and what level degree is required for it? So presumably they're talking about postgraduate course at MIC.
Yeah, so if you want to study to become an educational psychologist, and I've said this already, but I'll just say it again for clarity. If you want to study to become an educational psychologist, and this isn't MIC's requirement, this is the requirements by the Psychological Society of Ireland, you must do a doctoral level degree in educational psychology. And you can do that doctoral level degree at MIC, and it's also available at UCD. And obviously there's other international institutions, Queen's, the UK, etc. So we do have that international degree, or we do have that doctoral level degree at MIC, and it's a 3-year degree. So if you wish to go from the B.Ed psychology undergraduate degree into that doctoral level degree, you can do that. However, you must have applied experience in between. So many students, what they decide to do is do the 4-year B.Ed psychology program. They then choose to teach for a number of years, and then they apply to the doctorate program at MIC or in other institutions to get onto it. But you must have that undergraduate degree in psychology, and you must have applied experience for a minimum of 2 years before you can apply to that doctoral level program. But yes, MIC has that, and we have a huge number of graduates from the B.Ed psychology program who finish their B.Ed psychology program and have a really strong interest in going into the world of teaching, and then maybe after a number of years decide, I miss psychology, or I really loved psychology and I'd love to, get back into it. And so as a result, they come back to MIC and apply to the doctorate program and get onto the program and do their 3 years full time on the doctorate program, and then come out as qualified educational psychologists. So there is that lovely trajectory there to do that. But you don't have to go on to be the educational psychologist. You can go into any field of psychology, or you can decide not to do any more psychology after your 4 years and go into the world of teaching and go down that pathway as well. So lots and lots of opportunities and lots of pathways that students explore once they finish their B.Ed psychology degree.
Thanks very much, Claire. Our next question is from Vivian, and I might just take this myself. Vivian wants to know, how much do you expect the points to drop this year for the Bachelor of Education in Education Psychology? I suppose, look, we won't know the points until they're released by the CEO during the summer, so it's to do with supply and demand. It depends on how many people would put it down and then get the points and meet the entry requirements. So, look, we don't know whether it'll go up or down or stay the same. That won't be known until the summer when the CEO releases it. Next then is a question from Jackie, and I'll put this to you, John. Jackie wants to know, how many placements in the Gaeltacht must you do on the Bachelor of Education? And that's for, I suppose I want to know for people who aren't from the Gaeltacht and for Gaeltacht applicants. And does the college help organise it, or is it up to the students themselves?
So it's 2 weeks, 2 times, or on 2 occasions you will do a 2-week placement, okay? And it's the same for B.Ed Psych, B.Ed International, and the B.Ed. It happens in first year, in between the Christmas and spring semester, so late January, and it happens in third year in May, June. These are funded and paid for by the department, but they're sourced by the student. So the student decides whether they go to Carrow, for example, or they go to Ballyferrett or Dingle, West Kerry, or indeed Portoriga, Ring, and so on. So it's up to you to decide where you go, but the department will pay for it, and you go twice.
Thanks very much, John. One for you now, Mary. Yulia wants to know about the early childhood care program. She wants to know, do you offer a variety of assessment methods So is it presentations, assignments, portfolios, posters, or is it just a focus on exams? So you might tell us a little bit about that.
No, and again, a really good, interesting question, and it's all of the above, Patrick. So we're very, very conscious that not everybody learns in the same way, not every student processes information in the same way, and so we try to model that in the different modes of assessment. So there will be, of course, written assignment, essay type assignments, but we also do quite a lot of project work. We do poster presentations, we do audio recordings with students, we get them to work together in teams. So a wide variety. And what I can say to any student that is concerned as well about assessment, and John mentioned it in his presentation at the outset, we have fantastic support within the college for students, around academic writing, about how to approach their academic work. And naturally, we would always in year one give as much support as we can through foundation studies, for example, to students in building their capacity, because as John said, going into third level is quite a jump from secondary level education. The degree in early childhood education is a rigorous degree, combines theory and practice in a very, very comprehensive way, but it is very, very demanding. And so we always provide as much support as we can to students with their academic writing, getting them to think reflexively, planning for their learning, planning for assessment, and as I say, using multiple types of assessments so that there isn't what I call this unrelenting diet of just essay type work and exams.
Thanks very much, Mary. One again for you, Claire. It's from Eva Crowley, and Eva wants to know, I suppose, do you study the same amount of psychology as well as primary school teaching or education, or is it more of one than the other?
Yes, so on the BEd programme, so the programme that Dr John O'Shea presented, and similarly on the BEd International programme that Dr Sarah O'Brien presented, there are elements of psychology that all students study, because they need to know that in terms of child development for working in primary schools. So all programs would look at things like developmental psychology, the psychology related to classroom management, for example, also the psychology when it comes to assessing students. So those threads of psychology are across all of the BEd programme and the three programs that we've presented today. However, when you're on the BEd psychology programme, you are also doing a degree in psychology. So you're going to have all of your degree subjects to do with your psychology degree. So for example, social psychology, psychology of behavior, biological basis of psychology, health psychology, abnormal psychology, all of those areas are going to be studied because you are ultimately coming out with a degree in psychology. So yes, you get the same psychology as the BEd or the BEd International students would get as part of your BEd programme, but then you also get all of the psychology to create a degree in psychology that is accredited by the Psychological Society of Ireland. So it's quite an exciting programme in that way. And also all of your degree programme of psychology, like students can make those connections then between those subjects and their education subjects. So one very much complements the other.
Thanks very much, Claire. And just a follow-on question then for you there from Sophie Trainer. She wants to know, what roads can the BEd in Education Psychology lead you to after your 4 years of study? So I suppose what other opportunities are there available? Yeah,
so you have your teaching qualification from the BEd side of your programme. So you can automatically go and work in a primary school setting, similar to the BEd students or the BEd International students. You can go and work in a teaching capacity in a mainstream school, a Guelph school, a special school, etc. You also then have your degree in psychology, and coming out of any institution in Ireland with a degree in psychology, it's very difficult to just go and get employment in psychology. As a general rule of thumb, most people who come out with a degree in psychology will need to do additional study in psychology. So the majority of our students would finish the BEd psychology programme and go and do some teaching, and then decide maybe they want to do some additional postgraduate study in psychology. And they can do that in any field, which then might lead them to employment in that area. So they could do it in health psychology, clinical psychology, sports psychology, educational psychology, etc. So there's lots of opportunities from there. We also have students who have done postgraduate studies that might link teaching and psychology. So they might have done things like play therapy, for example, and have gone and worked in those areas. We've had other students who have gone down the road of research. So, for example, we have had students who finished the 4 years of the B.Ed in psychology program and decide that teaching isn't for them, that, you know, they really don't want to go down the road of teaching, and they might decide to go straight into more work in psychology. So they might start to do some applied research in psychology and go down that road. And we've had many students who do that and go on and work in a third level institution, for example, in the area of research. So there's a huge amount of opportunities available. And then obviously with your B.Ed psychology degree, you have all the options available in education. So for example, if you wanted to go on into a leadership position within a school, principal, vice principal, if you wanted to work with some education bodies like the PDST or the NCCA or any of those areas, those opportunities are available. However, for many of these additional areas of work, you may need to do additional study, so postgraduate study. And there's an array of postgraduate study opportunities in education, both at Mary Immaculate College and in other institutions. So lots and lots of opportunities available on your education side of the degree, on your psychology side of the degree, or in a combined capacity.
That's
Thanks,
great.
Patrick.
Thanks very much, Claire. I might put this to you, Mary. We have a number of questions just from people, I suppose, thinking of doing an early childhood degree and maybe getting into primary teaching. And I mentioned the Professional Masters of Education earlier. Do you want to just maybe comment a little bit on that, Mary?
Yeah, and Patrick, you gave the answer earlier when you spoke about the Professional Masters in Education, you know, that 2-year program. And each year, of course, we have a number of our students who, you know, for whatever reason, do want to go on to do primary school teaching and decide they will pursue teaching by applying to the Professional Masters. And of course, we would always encourage students to go on and do that if that's what they want to do. But it also comes with a little health warning in that they must work quite hard at their undergraduate degree in early childhood, you know, get a good result, a 2.2 at least, and then apply through the Professional Masters. And as Claire said, you know, the Professional Masters runs out of Mary I, but it runs in other colleges in Ireland as well. So they're free to apply to Mary I or any of the other colleges offering that Professional Masters at the end of their early childhood degree.
That's great, Mary. Thanks. One for you now, John. Ashleen wants to know, with the B.Ed degree, can I specialise in German? And if so, what can I do with it?
Good question. So you can, so it's not a qualification, so to speak, in German. So what it is you're tailoring your degree. So you'll have German as, you know, something you can speak about at an interview, or perhaps, particularly now as we move conscious of languages moving forward and government priorities and so on in relation to moving languages into schools. So, for example, if you graduated with a B.Ed and you can show that you did 5 modules of German, you would be, you know, well qualified and quite attractive to schools as a graduate, because therefore then you could impact into the language teaching, foreign language teaching in particular in schools, which is going to happen. And there will be elements of languages other than English and Gaeilge in the future in our schools and our situations. So that's what it's there for. It's there for you to tailor. You can tailor your degree different to the person that will be sitting beside you, and you can go with that degree into the profession and sell yourself on the basis of, yes, I have my Bachelor of Education degree, but I also am, you know, a musician or a language expert, or, you know, have interest in mathematics, and indeed beyond. And that's why our degree is unique, because we provide such an array of choice within it. Okay, but it's interesting you picked German, and because at the moment there's a lot of talk in the media in relation to the future of languages in schools and so on. So I hope that answers that for you.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. Nicole was wondering what's the difference between the Gaeltacht course and the B.Ed course. I might even answer that myself. I suppose, John, you might agree with me. I presume it's really just an entry route, really. MI006 is for students who live in a designated Gaeltacht area, so they can apply through that route.
Absolutely,
so it's not,
no difference in course content then. Absolutely no difference in course content.
Perfect.
The only thing that I would say is normally students choose then to do placement in Gaeltacht schools. They'd be more inclined to do placements in Gaeltacht schools, obviously, because that's where they're living. Yeah.
Perfect. We have a question here from Laura, just wondering about the Professional Masters of Education, about the Irish entry requirement. I'll just answer that. Laura, yes, the entry requirement is a H4 on the Professional Masters as well. Maybe we're running out of time, so maybe a final question, maybe to you, Claire. It's from Sophie Trainer, and they want to know, can you use the psychology aspect of your degree when you're in the BEd in psychology, when you're teaching in a school, and is it better recognised in primary schools than just a BEd? So I presume they're talking about possibly better job opportunities, maybe things like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I suppose, Sophie, we have on average between 30 and 40 students annually who undertake the BEd in Psychology programme and who graduate at the end of the year. And if you compare that, you have, over 400, even up around 450 students who come out of the BEd programme from Mary Immaculate College alone. So when you are applying to a school, remember you're up against, graduates from all the colleges in Ireland, and we are the only programme with that BEd in Psychology degree that's very, very unique. So 30 to 40 graduates coming out and applying into schools, your CV is obviously going to stand out as having a psychology degree, but that will get you to the interview. And then I guess it's up to you to sell your degree from there on. And how do our students do? They do extremely well because they can highlight the application of psychology in the classroom. So they're very well versed at talking about how their psychology degree will impact on the classroom. So for example, they may feel that they have strength in the area of classroom management, that they've done additional study in the area of special educational needs, for example, that they understand the area of special education through, let's say, a biopsychosocial lens, that they can, many of them as well might have done their applied research in psychology with a view towards educational psychology. So that might also influence how they sell themselves at an interview. So yes, our students can do extremely well. And psychology, it's the biological basis of behavior. So behavior of children, child development, all of that is obviously extremely applicable when you think of teaching. So yes, the psychology degree really does inform the students' teaching and therefore can really help to sell the students' capacity at an interview. And then when they go into the school, and I know from my own experience, I am a graduate of the BEd in Psychology programme. And I know when I started teaching, one of the first classes I worked with had a number of students with complex needs. And I know the principal gave me that class because he felt, I had studied in that area and maybe I would have strength in that area. And I did draw on my psychology to help inform how I would work with those students. So yes, they are very much complementary degrees that can inform one and the other. So definitely always a plus, yeah.
Thanks very much, Claire. I'm afraid we've run out of time, so I'd just like to thank all our speakers, Dr. John O'Shea, Dr. Mary Moloney, Dr. Claire Griffin and Dr. Sarah O'Brien for their presentations.